This is the Happy Families podcast, the place you come when the kids are having big feelings, because that is what we do. We help you to navigate those. Picture it, your 6-year-old having a meltdown because their toast broke in half. Your 9-year-old sobbing because their friend didn't sit with them at lunch. Your teenager has just slammed the door because you asked them to put the phone down for dinner. How dare you? And somewhere in the back of your mind, you're kind of thinking, why can't they just manage their emotions like a normal person? So here's the plot twist. They're not supposed to. In fact, expecting your children to regulate their big feelings is kind of like expecting them to drive a car before they've learnt to walk. Today, we're busting the biggest myth in parenting, that kids should be able to handle their emotions on their own. And we're going to give you the science-backed strategies that actually work when your child's emotional world explodes. Stay with us. G'day, welcome to the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every single day. My name's Justin. I'm here with Kylie, my wife and mum to our 6 kids. The most popular topics in terms of downloads on this podcast, ADHD and emotion dysregulation. Today, we tackle the latter, big emotions, with some quick reminders and some useful tips for your child's next temper tantrum or emotional moment. Kylie, you're looking at me with a strange look on your face. It looks like you're about to have a big emotion because your microphone has been switched off. I just realised you're not saying anything. It's because I haven't turned your mic on. I'm so sorry.
I find it curious, and I fall into the same trap that we're asking our children.
Yes.
With their lack of experience, lack of developmental progress, and just a lack of time in the world.
Yeah.
To be able to regulate their emotions when even us as the big people really struggle from time to time.
And when you say from time to time, you mean most days?
Yeah, most days.
So let's start with the reality.
Maybe that's just me.
This may be a sanity saver. Kids aren't supposed to manage their big feelings. I mean, we want them to, and eventually they will. But their brains are wearing L plates. L plates, as in like a learner plate that you put on the back of the car that says, "I still don't really know what I'm doing here." Even more practically, kids start to develop some sort of emotion regulation. Let's get clear on the definition of emotion regulation: the ability to either turn your emotions up or down based on the context and consistent with your long-term goals. Like 3-year-olds don't have long-term goals. They have immediate goals. They want instant gratification. They don't understand the idea of frustration tolerance, and it's inappropriate developmentally for us to be trying to teach them that in any meaningful way.
But I also think that as a society, we actually look down on big emotions. If someone's overly excited, it makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable often. Mm-hmm. If somebody's overly angry, that leaves everybody definitely feeling uncomfortable. So in some ways, it's a little bit counter to what we're actually wanting our children to do. We're wanting them to experience their emotions and understand them, but we're also going, just make sure it's not too much.
Yeah, and that's appropriate that we want to help them. This is called socialisation, right? That's what our job is as parents, is to socialise our kids. But they don't start to get this until the age of 3 in a really rudimentary way. And on average, most kids will be able to have their emotions reasonably well regulated most of the time by
I love how you're slowing down
age
there.
9. Well, I want to put 1,000 caveats in here because it depends on how hungry and how tired and how stressed and how worked up and all those things they are, right? I mean, I'm saying 9, but one of my favorite things to do when I'm teaching this stuff in my workshops and my presentations, I'm in schools or corporations, and I'll talk about emotion regulation. I'll say, put up your hand and tell me, how old do you think the average child is when they can regulate most of their emotions most of the time under fairly standard circumstances? And usually the first response from somebody who thinks they're so funny is they'll say 43.
Yeah.
and then everyone will guffaw because it is just naturally, it's hard to do this. We are, as Brené Brown says, emotional beings first. And when something happens, our rational brain has been bound and gagged and stuck in the boot, and the emotions are driving us down the highway. If that's the case for us as adults, because we haven't understood principles of stoicism, for example, and we don't know how to regulate ourselves well, what chance do our children have at the age of 3 or 4 or 5, or at the age of 16 when their brain's going through that second brain explosion? So I guess there's one more thing that I want to pick up on now that you've pulled me up on that. with all of my caveats. I did say most of the time, and I did say on average, because even a well-regulated 43-year-old still going to have moments where their emotions overwhelm their capacity to manage them.
You're not 43 anymore. Right?
I'm not talking about me. If I was talking about me, I'd say almost 50-year-old. I had this happen to me the other night. I'm going to share it on the pod. This is a hard thing for me to say, but I walked into the house and we've got a 22-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 15-year-old, and an 11-year-old, and they're all doing stuff all, and the house looks like a bomb's gone off. And it's like they're oblivious to the fact that there's work to be done. And I feel like I work pretty hard, and I feel like you work pretty hard. We don't stop. And I didn't regulate particularly well. I'm just saying, I mean, I didn't lose it, but I was not as regulated as they're used to seeing me. I had some suggestions for them as to what might happen and when it might happen and why it shouldn't be me or you that was doing it. Anyway, let's move on with this. In 2025, we talk about dysregulation, we talk about neurodevelopmental challenges and trauma. But what I want to emphasize here is it's normal and natural to struggle to manage big feelings. And a lot of the time, what we're dealing with is a stage, and a lot of the time we're dealing with humanity and being a human, and we just need to trust our kids' innate development and trust that we are setting a good example. And when you understand that, that's when everything changes. Instead of thinking, why can't you just calm down, or why can't you be like everybody else's children, what you do is you start thinking, all right, how can I help my child to get through this while their brain is learning how to do it on their own?
I'm thinking back to my experience as a young mum, young Kylie, dealing with young children, and specifically a few children with really big emotions. And those emotions would often present themselves at the most inconvenient time. They were, as we were walking into the school ground and parents were everywhere, or we were in the grocery store buying groceries and there's people everywhere. And my initial thought was not for the care of my child. My initial thought in those moments was, everybody's looking at me.
Yeah.
They're wanting me to do X, Y, and Z. And if I don't do the right thing, then I'm a bad parent.
Ego and pride and comparison.
And there's so much pressure around that.
Yep.
And we're well-meaning. But so often the comments that we make to other parents in those moments, or the looks that we give them, just feel judgmental. What they actually need is a pat on the back and said, it's okay, today's going to be okay, or can I help, or any number of things than what we often say. But if we can turn our attention not to how we're feeling, but to have compassion for our child with the big emotions and recognize that this is part of the human experience, we're going to present ourselves differently. We're going to show up differently for our kids in that moment.
Yeah, I think we are. So after the break, we're going to talk about a couple of things that you can do when the kids are having really big emotions so that they can and you can navigate it in a way that everybody can feel good about, and somehow you can look beyond the upturned noses and the what we might perceive as judgment from other parents. I reckon most parents are not actually judging you. They're quite compassionate because they've been there, and the ones that are, you don't need to worry about anyway, because they're not the kind of people that you want to hang around with. Let's talk about solutions in just a sec. Stay with us. We're back with the Happy Families podcast, Real Parenting Solutions every single day. All right, Kylie, we need to talk about how we're supposed to guide our children through their really big emotions. I want to go through a couple fairly quickly. Feel free to chuck anything in that you've got in your mind here. The first one I want to talk about as the solution to big emotions is distraction. Distraction works. It gets a bad rap because we think it's avoiding the problem. And if we use distraction consistently, then that's what it might be doing. But here's the neuroscience. Child's emotional brain gets activated. Thinking brain goes offline. You can't reason with a dysregulated nervous system. High emotions, low intelligence, can't think straight in a high emotion state, all those things that we talk about on the pod all the time. Distraction works because it gives the emotional storm time to pass and it engages a different part of the brain. So when your toddler is having that meltdown over the broken toast, pointing out the bird outside the window is not a dismissal of their feelings. It's just giving their nervous system a chance to reset. Some people will think, oh, you're rewarding bad behavior. I don't think so. I think what you're doing is you're giving your child the best chance possible to pull it together. Distraction buys you time for their system to calm down enough that their thinking brain can come back online.
What I love about this particular strategy is the fact that it doesn't leave my child in distress for long periods of time. When our granddaughter shows up and she spends some time with us and she might hurt herself, she will get really upset, and especially because mum's not here and she, kind of naturally is drawn to go to mum. And I'll just start singing with her, and it's amazing how quickly she kind of shuffles away from that massive emotion to a joyful moment.
Yeah, even with our bigger kids, like in their teens, having a bad moment, let's go for a walk. Like, nature is great, by the way, as a way to regulate your emotions. Being in nature really, really helps a lot. But just going and doing something different, shifting your brain into a different space, playing a game. I'm not big on this, but even watching TV for half an hour just to bring it all back down, you still will usually need more than that. If you're going to use a screen as a distraction, it's not particularly effective and it gets used as an escape too much. But anyway, that's my first one. Let's talk about the second one. Co-regulation, if your child will allow it. So remember, high emotions, low intelligence. You might try to be close to your child when they're emotional and they're kicking and punching and screaming and saying, leave me alone, like really losing it. When they're doing that, give them the space that they want. One of my favorite lines has always been, do you want me to be with you and give you a hug, or do you just want some space?
Yeah, I love that one.
And I know I use it with you all the time because it doesn't just work with kids. I think co-regulation is an incredible weapon. It's a secret weapon, but that crucial caveat is really at the heart of it. Some kids don't want to allow it, and that's okay. You've got to respect their need for space. For the kids who will let you help, the magic formula is really simple. You say what you see and then you listen. So it might be, I can see you're really frustrated right now. And then just stop talking. Or sometimes your sister really bugs you, doesn't she? And then stop talking. You want to jump in with solutions. You want to jump in with explanations. You want to jump in with life lessons. But instead, I heard somebody use this phrase, just bear witness. Just bear witness to their experience and their challenge and let them know that you can see it. Because when you are calm, you will help regulate their nervous system, but only if they're not feeling crowded or controlled. And if they say, leave me alone, then honor that. Some kids need to process things internally before they can connect with others. You can say, hey, I'm here when you're ready. I've often said to our kids, you can come and get a hug from me in the next 5 minutes, or I'm going to check in with you in 2 minutes and see how you're going. And then you just give them the gift of space. Co-regulation is not forced connection. It's offered connection.
The acknowledgement that our whole experience is not supposed to be done alone in this world. We're actually supposed to do it together. And the idea that we can utilize someone else's calm, we can catch someone else's calm when we're having these really big emotions is so powerful. I love that there are a couple of safe places that I can go to when I'm feeling really, really stuck in big emotions.
So this is the critical thing. You're talking about what you want as an adult when you're feeling emotional, and the kids are the same.
Yeah.
It's just that we don't give it to them. We find
their emotions, they're inconvenient. They never happen when we've got the time and the energy and the space. They
never happen when we're not in the middle of a really important email or a really important game, or stirring the saucepan on the stove, or trying to get somewhere and do something. That's the reality. It's just a pain.
But isn't that parenting? There's nothing convenient about it, really.
Yeah, that's right. If I was going to say, if you wanted it to be convenient, get a dog, but even dogs are not convenient.
No, just don't do it.
No, don't have a pet either. No. But you don't have kids because you want a convenient life. They give you that meaning, that purpose. All right, our time is all but up. We need to wrap this up.
Well, what's the last one?
Well, there's a million more that we could talk about, but the last one that I wanted to talk about today was just the natural inclination that we have to try to fix things. Like when the kids are having big emotions, we want to fix it, we want to calm them down, we want to get everything sorted out. And I think the ability to stop and not try to fix things immediately might be the hardest, but probably the most important when it comes to kids and emotion regulation. The rule is as follows: no problem solving until emotions are stable.
If we go back to your original conversation around distraction actually works, especially when we're dealing with older children, we don't, just because you've distracted them in the moment doesn't mean that you can't revisit it. But once their emotions are calm, that's when you're actually able to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
When it comes to processing emotion.
If you're trying to problem solve during emotional dysregulation, it's like
or even speak logic.
Yeah.
To an illogic.
No, it's like trying to have a board meeting during a fire drill. Like the alarms are sounding and everyone's running out of the building. You're saying, no, but we need to sit down and have this conversation about these finances. And the rest of the board's going, not now. This is not the time for it. No one can think clearly. Everyone's in survival mode. We just need to wait until emotions return to baseline, because then we can have a conversation without the emotional charge. And that's when you get to move into problem solving.
And I love the way that Disney movie Inside Out depicts what's going on up inside a brain when these big emotions are being felt. And the thing that stands out to me is that often there's not just one emotion that's trying to take control of the situation. There's multiple emotions. And so that's where these big feelings come from, because you're trying to understand what it is you're feeling, but there's too many emotions to kind of work it all out in that moment.
So there's some ideas that should be helpful. I mean, we could talk about this for hours. There's so much more that we could have discussed. I do want to highlight this, though. Sometimes you just need to let them have their tantrum. Sometimes nothing you can do is going to make any difference. Sometimes they're just upset and they're going to blow their top. And the interesting thing about emotions is they're just like waves on the beach. They come in and then they go out. Some waves are bigger than others, and some waves kind of knock you down, but they always go back out, and you can get back up and dry off and work things out. You're the parent. Make the call. If they need to have that moment, let them scream. Just give them the space and go back to them when things are level and balanced. Really hope that some ideas here have helped with your children and their big emotions and the stages they go through. If you know somebody who would benefit from this podcast, please share it. The more we share the pod, or the more you share the pod, the more families we get to help and the bigger influence we get to have on the world, which is what we're looking for. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Mim Hammonds assists with research, admin and other support. And there's a whole lot of resources to help you with all of these challenges and more at happyfamilies.com.au.